We're turned off. Now we're recording. Okay, let's get back to. Okay, we're learning that the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, who passed away in this month in 1950, that he was the Moses of the generation. And just as God spoke to Moses way back then and told him to go together with God to the source of Paro, to this tremendously high essential level of godliness, which is totally hidden and concealed from all mankind, impossible to understand, impossible even to experience this aspect of godliness. We don't reality. Let's talk about God. Reality, ultimate super truth. It was impossible for Moses to accept it. So there we go. And God took him there. So the same thing is also with the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. And the Rebbe, of course, is speaking about himself, that they somehow or other lived and presented and demanded that their followers, and from that all the Jewish people, and consequently all the entire world, should also partake of this aspect of truth and live a life of truth, which means, according to the Torah, the 9 Jews, the 7 Noahide commandments, that's the whole idea of Mashiach. The whole idea of Mashiach is that the world, to make the physical world a true world, which means tremendous responsibility. Everyone is tremendously responsible, and everyone is tremendously, how do you say, empowered to fill this responsibility, to make the world a better place, to be more honest, to be more friendly, to be more loving, to be more practical, to be more courageous, to be more ingenuitive. Okay, without looking at all this, by the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, there's also this level of Bo'el Paro. The previous Rebbe had this revelation of truth, which ideally everyone is going to have. Right? We're living in a world, we're all alive. God is creating the same God, only one God. He's creating all of us. And true, everybody is, how do you say, men are not, they're all created equally by the same creator, but not all people are equal. Not all people are even similar. Not all equal. But every man is equal in that they're all being created by God, and that God loves all of them. So they have a tremendous potential to do, but each one in his own way, and also everyone is governed by the laws of the Torah. That the Torah is the only law that God personally himself ever gave in the world. Others are just inventions, spiritual inventions, physical. Okay, so the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, if so, he had this level of coming into Paro to eliminate the source of evil. Harizeh Ka'et now is actually, in effect, says the Rebbe, but often Kafish and Nimsa, like it is found in Kineshama Lamaylam Yaguf, how it's above the body. The previous Rebbe, of course, when the Rebbe was speaking, was not alive. This was in previous Rebbe passed away in 1950, and he wasn't, after that, he wasn't visible anymore. But Tzaddikim never pass away. Alpi Amadubar, I mean, the soul never dies in general, but by the Rebbe's, is even their body, it was complete, but not in a way that we can understand. Not in a way we can understand. It says, excuse me, there's going to be the raising of the dead. The raising of the dead means our bodies that we had previously will come back. Right? Those bodies will be revealed in the world. Alpia Madubar, like we said before, La'il, and I mean, of course, there'll be changes. It says it'll be reconstructed from this bone, this loose bone. But it's going to be our same body. I guess people recognize each other. People will recognize each other, their bodies. The body will be higher than the soul. How is this going to be? Well, says the Rebbe, well, the fact is that it is right now. By the previous Rebbe for sure. So here we go. Now is the time that we can actually make, according I'm sorry, Alpia Madubar, like we said before, in long length, it's understood that the whole completion of this truth, of the essence of what God is, the reason why God is creating the world, and that's imbued in every single human being, the Jews first, because the real revelation of this is not how the previous Rebbe is now, just a soul alone without being in a body, but the main revelation is when the souls are in the bodies. As we said so many times, this world is infinitely higher than heaven. So the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe is not with us physically, so it seems. But the fact of the matter is that somehow or other, just like the Holy Temple, right? The Holy Temple, it says, it's already ready, it's built. It just has to come down. Has any astronaut or pilot, radar, or sonar, or anything ever detected such a huge building? I mean, it must be weigh, millions of tons. Huge building is going to come down. And it's a real actual building. Where is it? It's a different type of real reality that we don't understand. So it says, that's what's going to be by the Bali Alula. Take of him yet, it's going to be, the previous Rebbe is going to come and be with us. When Kitzu V'Ranu Shoch Ne'afar, when there wakes up and sings those who now lay in the dirt, those who are now dead. It's a sentence in Isaiah that all the dead will rise. So not just the previous Rebbe will rise. So this is some sort of spooky thing only for Chabad. This is every single Jew. Every single Jew. Kol Yisrael Yishlam Chelik B'Olam Haba. Let's talk about the raising of the dead. But the ones that are going to lead this way and show the real true value of the physical body and the physical world, that's the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. Or in our case, it's the Rebbe. The Rebbe just insists that he's just an extension of the previous Rebbe. Even when he's in this level, in this world, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, when he was in this world, and again, let's have a picture of the previous Rebbe, just so that you know that we're actually talking about a real human being over here. Here we go. Let's go like this. How do we do it like this? I hope we don't get lost like all the other times we always get lost. 1 second. Here we go. Oh, this guy is terrible. 1 second. Worst picture. Okay. Here we go. Yosef Chabad. Yes, we did it. We got it. There he goes. Okay. Here, see the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. Have another couple pictures of him. No, that's not what we want. That's not what we want. All the time we go through the same thing. Okay, I just wanted everybody to see the picture. Here we go. All right. Anyway, here's a picture of him. Picture of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. Interesting man. You can look it up. Rebbe Yitzchak. So it says when he was in this world, he had tremendous Yisurim, he was tortured tremendously. The sentence they're always bringing up from Isaiah and the paragraph 53, that he was tortured and he suffered for his sins. Ostensibly that's talking about the Jewish people. That's what all the Jewish commentaries say. But some say that it was talking about the King Chezkiyahu, who also had who also was sick and suffered terribly. But it'll also be the Moshiach. And the Moshiach, and that's the previous Rebbe, he was terribly, that the previous Rebbe suffered terribly. He was put into prison, he was sentenced to death, he was tortured, he was beaten, he was in the bombing of Warsaw. Kol Zev, he became sick, he became ill when he came to America, he had enemies on all sides, including that in his last years, it was something like Kavod Pevach of Loshan, the last years, when the previous Rebbe, when he came to America, in 1940, this is right after the bombing of Warsaw. In 1940, he came to America and he came in a wheelchair. And finally, in the last couple of years, the only one that could understand him speaking was the Rebbe, was his son-in-law, our Rebbe, was the only one that could understand him. Because it was so, it's the same thing like the Rebbe. The previous Rebbe was just like Moses, that he was covered peh and koshel. And I mean, it goes without saying, our Rebbe also the same thing. He also couldn't speak the last years of his life. He had the last 2 years with it. So it says he was he is hard of speaking. His mouth and his tongue didn't work, just like Moses was. But Paul, this also was in a way that he couldn't speak. He couldn't say Hasidut. He couldn't spread out Judaism as he wanted. Couldn't speak. The main thing was his speech. I'd get it to the degree that even the doctors, that there was then one professor that this was, he was not just a regular doctor, he was a professor. He asked him and he said, Hayatachan, how can it be that such terrible afflictions are on the Rebbe's speech? The Rebbe did so much with his speech and he spoke so many wonderful things and he wrote so many wonderful things, so many encouraging things. You'd figure that God would protect those two things. Right? I mean, the Rebbe could spread out Judaism, if not, he couldn't walk, but here he couldn't write and he couldn't speak. Specifically, those two things that he used in order to spread out Judaism and to give advice and to help people, specifically those two things should have been protected. And note that they weren't, to the degree that a professor even asked him, Rebbe, you're such a great person, you spoke so many great things, how can it possibly be that specifically in your power of speech, it was impeded? But often that you can't do your purpose, you can't fulfill your responsibility to God in this world, you have to speak. And what did the previous Rebbe say? What did the previous he said? You're the one that you turned around the whole world. You made everybody crazy with Judaism and spreading out Torah, spreading out Judaism, spreading out Hasidut. And God should have given him the possibility that he could do this all of the days of his life. So it doesn't make any sense. Why is it that the previous Rebbe specifically lost the power of speech? It should have been that he could have, it should have been protected, his power of speech. God should have protected it. Because mainly by means of his speaking, Mafitzim Torah b'Yadus, he spread out Torah and Judaism. By means of saying Hasidut, exactly the opposite. Since that the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, he kocht sich, he made such a big effort in this, it should have been by him this even more powers than normal people. There he should have been more protected. I see what's going on with this thing over here. 1 second. Give 1 minute. 1 minute. 1 minute. Oh. Is that it? Yeah. There. Good. Okay. So by the previous Rebbe, I mean, he did so many good things with his speaking, that should have been more powerful than everybody else. If so, how could it possibly be? The professor asked the Rebbe that notwithstanding all the good things he did with his power of speech, we saw B'diuk exactly the opposite. Shiasuri gufo pagu b'koach hadibur, that the suffering of his body, the afflictions of his body affected his speech. Shezeh paul b'pashtus tiyeba pegia gam b'dibur b'mamre chasidut. It means that the previous Rebbe couldn't spread out Judaism. He couldn't do his job in the world. Shebapashtus and yani pala davar sheyeh b'zeh miut. It meant that there would be less of his ability to do good. I mean, the Rebbe did so much good. Why specifically in that part of his body, the power of speech, was he prevented from continuing to do good? And he was only doing it for what God wanted. He wasn't doing it for himself. Whether we're talking about speaking words of Hasidut, or whether we're talking about speaking or even writing the ideas of Hasidut. Because if you would have said more discourses in Hasidut, which the previous Rebbe spoke a lot. I mean, you can see even in the worst times, and then people could be able to repeat these Maimorim and to read what he wrote. The previous Rebbe, even when he was put into Siberia, it was a Kostroma, so he was put into these terrible, he was sent to exile. As soon as he got there, he said words of Hasidut. He said Hasidic discourses. They're very beautiful also, very deep. Even in those situations, and they're written down. And the Rebbe went through in in Poland terrible times, right? There were, especially when the Nazis started to bomb. And nevertheless, he was saying my morning the whole time, and they were being written down. And specifically, when he comes to America, now he has the chance that he can spread out Judaism from 1940 until 1950. Is then his power of speech got less and less until the last couple of years. Nobody could understand him. He couldn't speak. Nevertheless, even though that it's true, you can't ask questions on God in His world, and especially on the leader of the generation. And so it's not lo shayach. It's not. I mean, what's the Rebbe saying? You want. It says in Isaiah that the Moshiach is supposed to suffer, right? So he's supposed to suffer. So, like I said, one opinion says that's the Jewish people, and another one says that it was King Chezkiyahu. And there's okay. So, but you want to make them suffer, but why should you take away their ability to do good? Why take away their ability to do good? Take away other things. To afflict the parts of them that they didn't do what they were supposed to do. Send them a message. Send them a message that, you did bad things with this. So bad things that you afflict. Why afflict good things? Why? What's the purpose of it? The reason that they're the Jewish people, I mean, if you can say that there were punishments and lessons, is because of the bad things that they did. So send them a message, stop doing bad things, right? Afflict. Why afflict places that do good? It says, even though the fact is that God does what He wants to, and you can't ask any questions, and even the questions on the Jewish people, you shouldn't ask questions. But how could it be, and how should it be differently? Nevertheless, the fact is, says the Rebbe, Kava Kodesh Baruch Hu, God made a world where one of the principles of the world is Eini mevakesh lefi kochi el lefi kocham. God said, I do not demand from the Jews according to what my ability, but according to yours, right? God could say to everybody, listen, I'm giving you, where'd you get your arms from? You got it from me? Cut off your arms. Cut them off. God could say if He wants to, right? But where do you get your legs from? Where are your eyes from? Right? Stick your legs into fire. Come on, it's my legs. But that doesn't request that. He doesn't request that. He doesn't request that we do things that are impossible. And if He does request things that are impossible, so we have a right to ask. I don't understand. This doesn't seem to be according to the principles that you yourself, God, set. Right? You're only asking according to our ability. It must be. So if so, we should try to understand. One second, I just thought of a story. Okay. So if so, we've had a request, so we have a right to ask, right? So, especially in our case, it's not just an intellectual question of a professor. How can it be that the leader of the generation is not able to complete his job? This is a Torah question. It's not just a doctor, a medical question. He's in. Kamuvan says that Moses, he asked that Moses, he complained to God. He said, God, you want me to go in to Paro and talk to him? You control the world. You made it that I have a speech impediment. Ani aros of a time, I can't speak. Therefore, Moses had a good complaint to God. And he said, listen, you want someone to go and take the Jews out of Egypt? Take somebody else. You made it that I have a speech impediment. It doesn't work together, God. You're asking things, you're doing things that don't make any sense. You want me to take the Jews out of Egypt, so get rid of my speech impediment. And I have a speech impediment, so send somebody else. If so, it's permissible to ask questions from God. God answered him back and He said, good question, Moses, right? Paro didn't say to Moses, listen, don't ask, do me a favor, Moses, don't ask questions. Who are you? Who are you? I'm creating you. I'm creating the world. Don't ask any questions. That's what God should have said. right? You go into Paro and you'll see what will happen. You're asking me questions. Go into Paro. I'm disappointed in you, Moshe. I expected more of you, Moses. Come on, go into Paro and just do your stutter. You'll see what will work. No, God didn't say that. God didn't say, he said, listen, Moses, I'll be with your mouth. I created a mouth. I will be with your mouth. I'll help you. Don't worry. And he never said, he said, Moses, I agree with your question. It's a good question. I'll be with your mouth. And you know what? I have a better, God said, Aaron, he'll do the talking. So Aaron, so what did Moses say? Hey, God, you can't do this to me. You can't send me into Egypt. I haven't got any, if you control everything. So, either you tell Paro to let the Jews go, or you fix up my mouth, or send somebody else, right? Do me a favor, do it. And God said, good question. Good question, Moses. Good question. First of all, I'll be with your mouth. And not only that, I'll send somebody else with you. I'll send someone else with you. So we see that Moses asked a justified question, and God even further justified him. He said, I'm glad you asked. We can even say, that which was, so therefore we're asking the same question by the previous Rebbe. That which was by the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe was something like it was by Moses. Because there has not yet been a completion in the job that Moses was supposed to do, and in the Rebbe's case, the job that the previous Rebbe was supposed to do, namely to bring Moshiach and free all the Jews. Therefore, Dibur hu begalus, therefore his speech was in exile. In Moses' case, it said that he was above that level. That's the way he explained it. He couldn't speak because he was too high. And God did not heal him. But he made a miracle, and he said, I will be with your mouth. You'll be able to speak a few words that'll be proper when you go into Paro. Okay, but nevertheless, we still have the question. The Rebbe said, how can you ask questions about God? He said, well, Moses asked questions about God, and God said, okay, good question. So we're also asking questions about God. How could it possibly be that the previous Rebbe, whose main thing was speech, was affected? He was paralyzed in his ability to speak. It says, the way that it will be fixed up was like God did with Moses. God said, don't worry, I'll be with your mouth. And also I'm going to send someone else to do the talking with you. The Kocho Shel Bali Elula is the power of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe by means of being a soul in the body. The Shamos Brios, healthy souls in healthy bodies. Shel Darenu, now in our generation, we are now the 9th generation from the Baal Shem Tov, right? There was the Baal Shem Tov and the Magid, and then 7 generations of Chabad. This is the 9th generation. Sheba Kochenu, says the Rebbe, we have the power, the fool to bring about Hatafkid. We can do the job of Aaron. Just like Moses asked a question about God and said, God, I can't speak. So God said, okay, 2 things. First of all, I'll help you speak. And not only that, I'm going to send Aaron with you. He's going to speak clearly. Says the Rebbe, it's the same thing with us. We have to fill the purpose of Aaron. We have to say the words of Hasidut. We have to bring over the ideas of the previous Rebbe and the Rebbe to others. Like by means of actually speaking. But often a call nishma beit Paro, like it was by Yosef. It says that the whole house of Paro heard what was going on. B'shefa Rab. We have to do a lot of speaking. Al divrei Torah v'horaos, by means of saying words of Torah and teaching and deciding laws, and bringing the teachings and the instructions, the Bali Elula of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, ad dorasenu zen, till our generation, this generation, who adore bo mitkamed, our generation will be the one that will actually fulfill what Moses requested back then from God at the burning bush, that God said, go and take the Jews out from Egypt. And Moses said, listen, I can't speak, I can't this. And God said, don't worry, I'll be with you. And then Moses said to God, Shalach na b'yad tishalach. The Rebbe explained, Moses said to God, you know what, send someone else. So what do you mean send someone else? God picked him. So the Rebbe explained, remember we learned this 2 weeks ago, that Moses said to God, one second, what are you going to do, God? You want me to take the Jews out of Egypt? And then afterwards, there's going to be Moshiach, and he's going to take the Jews out of exile. Why do two? Why do it in two steps? Send Moshiach now. Shalach now be'yet. Don't send me. I'm already stuttering, and you're going to be with me. You're going to help me. So help me to totally send Mashiach, and Mashiach will take the Jews out totally from all the problems. Says the Rebbe, God said to Moses, good idea, but it's not going to go that way. That's not my plan. But says the Rebbe, now is the finishing of the plan. Now is the time when the request of Moses is going to be fulfilled, and God is going to send the Mashiach, Bepol actually, and revealing all this tremendous high awareness of God, like Moses did. He met the essence of Paro, and in speech, in which that's essentially what the Rebbe did. Yeshlom, we can say that this is also hinted at the words, the Rosh Tevet, at the initials of the word miyad. The Mashiach will come miyad, immediately. It says Mashiach will come immediately, miyad. Miyad are the first letters Mem, Yud, Daled. Mem is Moshe, Moses, Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, and David Malchut Mashiach. David is the Mashiach. That's the complete service of Moses and what the Baal Shem Tov began. The Baal Shem Tov, it says, how did the whole movement of Chassidut begin? The Baal Shem Tov had an experience. One Rosh Hashanah, it says that his soul went up to these higher levels, and he went up to the chamber of Mashiach, and he asked the Mashiach, when are you going to come? And the Mashiach said, when your teachings are spread out all over the world to everyone, your teachings of Chassidut, that's when I'm going to come. So the whole movement of Chassidut was only to bring Mashiach. This includes all of our Rebbes until the Rebbe of our generation, the previous Rebbe. And this was begun by David Malchut Mashiach. Shalach na biyad tishalach, miyad, immediately. I'm sorry. Shalach na biyad tishalach. Send whoever you want to send. In other words, just like the Jewish people in Egypt back then, they never dreamed that it was even possible that they were actually going to leave Egypt. They couldn't imagine what it meant. How could they leave? They had been slaves. Their parents were slaves. Their grandparents had been slaves. 4 generations of slaves that were in Egypt. They had no dream, even conception, what it means to get out. They knew there was going to be such a thing, but it's like some sort of a weird, what do they call it? A baba mice, something your grandmother talks about. But it's not really real in this world. All of a sudden came Moses and he let everybody out. Who would dream that you would come hail from heaven with fire inside of the hail? The hail would come down with fire inside of it. Who would dream there'd be such a thing? Impossible. Well, the fact is that in the future redemption, the Mashiach, which is supposed to be any second now, and it's Mashiach comes right now, he's already late, tremendously late, that there's going to be miracles that are even going to be bigger, but they're not going to be to destroy anyone. There won't be destructive miracles. Somehow or other, there'll be miracles which will, that's pretty amazing. I mean, you have like in the news today, so they always want to have bad news. You got to have bad news. There's something bad, something, some criminal thing that somebody did. They love to reveal bad things because people aren't interested in good things. Same thing, the 10 plagues, that's interesting. There's going to be 10 good things that's going to happen. Who's interested in that? So that itself will be a miracle, that there's going to be miracles that are going to be only good, and we don't know what good is. We're not, right? Once in a while, you have a story of the poor child that raises himself up or something like that. Usually when something like happens, everybody's jealous of him or something. People are interested in bad things, right? The 10 plagues, that's good. It says the miracles in the future are even going to be bigger and better. What do you mean? There's going to be good things that are going to happen. Good things are going to happen. What's good things? Make it that God will destroy the nations, huh? He'll send big. Listen, that already was. The nations have been destroying one another. There doesn't have to be any more destructions, right? We're already Gog and Magog has already been. World War II was enough. It'll be miracles that'll be interesting, more impressive, and more amazing than going out of Egypt. How is it going to be? I don't know. Nowadays, nobody's interested in good at all. People don't even know what good is. Excuse me. Yesh Lomo, we can say that all this we talked about before is when Yud Shvat in this year comes out on Wednesday, but it doesn't this year. So let's skip over this 1 second. Okay, so it says from this we can understand that our generation, which is the 9th generation, and regarding to all the generations which are before, the 9th generation from the Baal Shem Tov, our generation is greater in some ways. Even the previous generation of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe says that that in fact in the life of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe the redemption did not come. Ball apparel. And the revelation of all these high, tremendous lights came, and revelations of truth and good. And it wasn't in the ultimate completion in the previous generations, exactly the opposite. We saw that there was the Holocaust was in there. And not only that, we see that the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe actually did pass away. His soul was separated from his body. And even when he was alive, his power of speech was tremendously impeded. Nevertheless, in our generation is the last generation of exile. It's the first generation of the redemption. It will come immediately. Like it says, Nitlu Amoros, that was says on the 4th day of creation. All of the dead will rise. And not only that, they'll rise up in a way that the Moshiach won't be a person that has speech impediments. It says kavod peh means that the oral Torah was not revealed, and kavod lashon means the written Torah was not totally revealed. It'll be even higher than this. But often shibin neshamos begufim, there'll be souls in bodies, will be able to receive the inner meaning and the inner truth which is in the Talmud and which is in the Torah. When we do a commandment, we'll feel the godliness in it. And that this will all be revealed now, immediately. Mashiach will come, like Moses requested at the burning bush, Shalach b'na b'yad Shalach, and he will teach the Jewish people, all the Jewish people, the Torah, until it'll be Torah Chadasha me'itei. He'll explain the Torah in such beautiful ways that we'll see the godliness in the Torah. It says that the world will be brand new and the Torah will be brand new. It won't be a different world. The trees will grow upside down or something, but it means that there'll be a world with trees and animals, but everything will be infinitely more alive than it is now. The same thing with the Torah. There'll be the exact same commandments. Jews will put on tefillin, non-Jews will do the 7 Noahide commandments, but it'll be in a way that everyone will feel the godliness and the truth and the life in everything. This will bring about an elevation in all of the generations which were before. Because we say that when there's the raising of the dead, that all of the generations of Jews, including even Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, which they were 4,000 years ago, that they'll all raise up. And the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, he'll be the first one. The Rebbe once was asked a question. You keep saying that the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe is going to raise up and that he's going to be the Mashiach. But everybody knows that Mashiach comes before the raising of the dead. So how can the previous Rebbe raise from the dead if the dead is going to come and be Mashiach when Mashiach comes before the raising of the dead? So the Rebbe said, that it says in many books of Kabbalah and a lot of other places that the raising of the dead will be a gradual process. And that some people will raise up before others. The tzaddikim will raise up before the other people will. So it'll be in the course of who knows what, 1 year or something like that. But nevertheless, the previous Rebbe, he'll raise up from the dead and he'll be the Mashiach, he'll take us up. How it's going to be something that's not usual. We don't see people popping out of their graves At least has not been reported, unless they make a mistake and bury somebody, alive. That also doesn't happen. So how is this going to happen? I have absolutely no idea, but I know that it is going to happen. There's no doubt about it. Well, I mean, let's just be realistic about this. How it was that God spoke to all of the Jewish people. They heard God speak, everybody, and that He told them these exact directions. I am God that took you out of Egypt. Believe only in me. Don't worship idols. What does God care? God Himself said these things. Moses said it. No, God Himself said the 10 Commandments, or the first 2 of the 10 Commandments, but they heard God. How does that make any sense? It doesn't make any sense. God creates the world. There's the law of gravity. That makes sense. It makes sense. There has to be a law of gravity. Why does there have to be a law? They can explain the laws, right? But the way that God makes the world, your eyes have to be in your head. They have to work together with your tongue, that when you see something, you can comment on it. The whole business doesn't make any sense, right? It doesn't make any sense. How much more so Torah, Mashiach? So the Rebbe says that's the whole point. Mashiach will come. Things will start to make sense. It'll be a different type of sense. The novelty of our generation regarding all the previous ones, we can see actually in our generation, there's a new thing which is spreading out Torah and commandments and Judaism outward, which that's one of the main features of Mashiach. Whether we're talking about in quantity, there's so many books of Chassidut that are written and which are printed, or whether we're talking about making the physical world until the furthest levels become a vessel to receive these tremendous lights, or whether regarding to the Jewish people by means of the 613 commandments, whether regarding even the non-Jews by means of spreading out the 7 Noahide commandments. Previously, the Rebbe asked once a question: why is it that we don't see in any books of responsa through the generations of Judaism? There have always been a lot of questions in Judaism. First of all, there's a lot of different opinions on a lot of laws by very great people. For instance, Maimonides, he's like amazing, but there's people who are equally amazing. In his generation, there was the Rif, there was the Rosh. Right? And these people were tremendous geniuses, and a lot of times they had different opinions than the Rambam. Which opinion do I go according to? Which one do I go according to? And so it's and all this response covers almost every topic of life, except for one we see that it doesn't cover, and that is the 7 Noahide commandments. Interesting. So in all of the response, there's very, very little. You have to really sift through until find laws that are relevant to the non-Jews. Here and there you can find things. The Rebbe said, why? Because it was dangerous. It was dangerous. You're going to say something against the church. You're going to say the church is idolatry. You're going to come out and say, that the non-Jews, that they shouldn't worship. Idolatry is one of the 7 Noahide commandments. That the church is idolatry. That all the Christians, they have to stop worshiping this person. They'll kill you. You can't say that. So the Rebbe, this was a speech that the Rebbe gave like in 1986, I think. And he said, up to now, it's been dangerous. So from now on, it's not dangerous anymore. That's what the Rebbe said. He said, our generation is spreading out even to the non-Jews. I mean, of course, you have to do things in a nice way, but still you have to do it. As kol olam, they shine up the whole world with the light of the commandments and the light of the light of the Torah, in a way of esprit kol horim. That now people that weren't relevant, Jews that didn't even know they were Jews, they would get these Jews from Russia, right? That they didn't even know they were Jewish. All of a sudden they're doing commandments. They get circumcised at 50, 60, 70 years old. That each one can receive this light of the soul, a healthy soul in a healthy body. On until Sharoim Bapol, we can see actually, and we spent many times before, that the Umas Olam, that the non-Jews in many, many countries, Messiah, they help the Jewish people in their service, especially in America. Even more than it was when they left Egypt. It says that in Egypt that the Egyptians helped the Jews to get out. They gave them riches. It says nowadays we see that in many countries in the world that they're helping the Jews. Even in Russia, that it was closed and it was impossible to leave for many years. and they didn't let any Jews go out, leave it. They couldn't even do Torah and the commandments completely. If there were too many Jews gathered together, they would arrest everybody. And spreading out Judaism was unheard of in Russia. Says the Rebbe, no, we've seen it go. It's changed from one end to the other. With Gorbachev, all of a sudden, they let down the iron curtain. People can come in, they can go out. Chabad also went back there. They have big Chabad centers. I think we've said this a lot of times, but a huge 5-story, beautiful synagogue and cultural center and the social center of Chabad is right opposite on the other side of the street from the KGB building in Moscow. Okay, now, Lozu Bilvad, not only that, do they allow the Jews to do the Torah and the commandments, and they can do what they want, and they allow them to go out. Even more, they help them. They help them till we see actually that in addition to the fact that the Jews are all prepared for the redemption, and also the non-Jews are also ready that the Jewish people should go out already from exile, and they should go to the land of Israel in a future redemption, souls in bodies, without any delay whatsoever. They can come immediately. The Jewish people immediately can reveal what it says, Boil Paro, this level that Moses got when God took him into Paro, revelation of the truth, the essence of God, why we're here in the world, why God loves us so much, he's creating us, why? That's going to be the Geula Mitzvah Shlema immediately by means of the Moshiach, the previous Rebbe, the Rebbe himself, as Priyo Kol and Ahorim, there'll be revealed all these lights, and then it says that God will be a light, an eternal light for everyone. Okay, let's just do this one, and now we can understand our teaching, what we can learn from this week's Torah portion, Bo El Paro, that God said to Moses, come with me to Paro. And we said Paro means being open revelation of the essence of God. Even though it also means physically that he went to this evil person called Paro. But the source of Paro is this tremendously high lights that's impossible to, which will only be revealed in Mashiach. We've spoken many times, essentially the raising of the dead. We've spoken many times that all of the projected times when Mashiach was supposed to come, they've all expired. Because we finished everything. Now, the Rebbe said this in 1992. The future redemption should have come a long time ago. It shouldn't be future. It should have been for all sorts of weird reasons that are not understood at all. The redemption has not come. We don't understand why. From this, we can understand that at least now, the redemption of the world has to come immediately. Or in the language, how the world says, Zez Manasi, this is the highest times. In Yiddish, the Hechsetzeit, highest time, for the future redemption. Okay, we have to look and see how in the world can this be. So there's a lot of commentaries, especially in Chabad, that they explain that there's new things that are happening. One thing it says in the end of Daniel, that before Mashiach comes, all of the bad in the world will come to the surface. It'll be easiest to skim it off. All the evil in the world, the lies in the world. And I think we can see this now, and I'm not going to get into any political, analysis over here. But I think what it means when you say that all the bad will be revealed means that evil people will go against their own principles. Not that they'll go against what I say, or they'll disagree with Judaism themselves. They'll disagree with what they themselves say, and not even what they themselves said. The principles that they themselves hold, they go against. For instance, religion is based on the whole truth, which is found in the Quran and in the Gospels. It comes from the Torah. One of the basic things of law of Judaism and of the Torah is don't cheat and don't kill. Don't lie, don't kill. right? And now we see that these two religions, especially, are right. Islam is going killing people right and left. Somehow or other, they justify it, right? They justify it. It's cutting off the limb that they're sitting on. And Christianity is like lies all over the place. They're in Israel, just trying to trick everybody. We like you, and we're for the Jewish people, and we're helping the Jewish people. We want the Jewish people. We like the Jewish people. Once a bunch of them came up to me in the marketplace. So we love Jewish people. I said, yeah, I love fish. That's why I eat them. You want to devour the Jewish people. They're going against their own principles. The limb that they're sitting on is the Torah, the principles of the Torah. And they're going against. So maybe we can see that this is a sign that was what was missing, or that all the bad in the world has to be revealed. I don't know. I can't explain it. I know there's a lot of beautiful boys that they say now that 70%, 75% of the soldiers that get killed in Israel now are religious. There's a tremendous turnover. People are waking up. But they're also getting killed, right? They're also getting killed. So how to explain it? I can't explain it. It says the Rebbe, the fact is we are in the highest times of all. And this is the whole idea of the redemption. So that's my take on it. How can we see clearly the redemption? Because all the evil is proudly revealing itself. It's proudly standing up and being revealed. It's not denying. They're not denying their own perfidy and crookedness and evil and destructive and self-destructive movements are standing self-destructive. Okay, this is especially so it says now we're on the highest time. This is also attached to the whole time. What do you mean time? The highest time. Time, we talked about this before. Yesterday? Time is limitation. Time itself becomes higher than time in a way that there's nothing higher than it. In other words, that this idea of limitations, past, present, and future itself will be somehow or other unlimited until a way that they unify really. Like we said before, Esprio Kol Nahorim. One way is the commandments. When a person does a commandment, it's eternal. And you can sort of feel this. You can feel it. You can feel that when you do a commandment, that's something that doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. It's not put into the past. You can feel it. That somehow or other, a commandment that you did, even when you were a child, it's eternal. It's right now. Right now. The Ikar Adgasha, and the main emphasis in this is on the limit of physical time, because spiritually, everybody knows that time is not so limited in the spiritual world. That's how the prophets could see in the future, because by then the future already is now. The spiritual eyes of the Jewish people will see already the redemption. Right now, you just have to open up your physical eyes. Try to look at the world from God's point of view. Shagam aim yiru, that you can see the redemption in physical eyes. Like we said before, the fact is there's really no death. All the death are going to rise. What about all these soldiers that get killed? What are they? So if we look from spiritual eyes, we can see that physically it's a tragedy. It's a heartbreaking, unexplainable tragedy. But if you look from a spiritual point of view, you can see that the tragedy is a tragedy, no doubt about it. But for somehow or other, this is a really good thing. Somehow or other, it's exactly what God wants. How can this possibly be? In our physical way of understanding, we can't understand it. You can't go to parents who lost their child and say, listen, it's a good thing. God says it's all right. He's going to go to heaven. You can't do that. You can't do that. You have to say, listen, it's a terrible thing what happened. It's awful, right? And there's going to be the raising of the dead. But there's consolations, right? There's consolations. The soul is not dead. The soul is still alive. And the soul looks from above. The Rebbe spoke about it with the soldiers that were killed in the 6th day. Your father is still alive. These children were orphans, right? And he's looking down at you and he's getting pleasure from the good things that you do. And he's helping you. And he wasn't just saying this to, comfort, making it up. It's the truth. But the fact of the matter is down here physically, it's a terrible tragedy, heartbreaking, that cannot be alleviated. Tragedy. But spiritually can be both together. Your heart can be broken on one hand, and at the same time, you can realize that this is a good thing. The main request that we have is that not so much because of the spiritual. We want the spirit, the God should be revealed, not because of we shouldn't pay attention to the world. It should be spiritual. We want mitzad ruchnis, because the spiritual, everything is okay. It's all right. Even though that a Jew is found in a physical world, but the soul of a Jew doesn't feel the darkness of the world, which is not the case. What we want Mashiach for is this physical world. The physical world of the body that the body is in, it's felt, this physical world and the concealment. So therefore, we have to have a desire and a longing for the future redemption to be in this physical world. That's the novelty of the future redemption. That namely, that the revelation of this level of come to paro, we said paro means the ultimate revelation of the highest lights of godliness, should be in this physical world. It should be seen with our physical eyes. That we should love God like we love money, even infinitely more, in a place and time physical, and that this world should be a dwelling for the essence of God, even more. And this is the essence. This is not devaluating the spiritual. This shows the true value of the spiritual worlds. Therefore, in the future, it says the souls will come into the body. The souls will be enhanced by the physical body that did Torah and the commandments. Because of this, the future redemption will come in a physical way. In all of the worlds. That's what we learned Bati Lagani, in all the worlds. What are we supposed to do? This we're going to talk about, God willing, next week. We're going to do this, God willing. We'll start off next week with this. What are we supposed to do now? Bo Paro. Yud Shvat comes out, not the Shabbat, but the Shabbat afterwards. So we'll have time to prepare for it. Good. Now let us do the Yom Yom. Let's do this here like this. And do